Smooth, smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. This is Freshly Pressed. We're looking at the news stories making the headlines across the country. And as always, would love for you to be a part of the conversation. The WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at smooth981. We're streaming live on our YouTube channel. It's smooth981. It's Omas and Zibby. And we have the analysts in this morning. It's Mr. C and AB Bozimo. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning, Omats. Good morning, Mr. C. And most especially, good morning to all the people's children out there today on Children's Day. Have a fantastic week ahead.
Good
Stay
morning.
young at heart.
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning, Omas. Good morning, Navy. Good morning, Lagos, and happy Children's Day to all the children.
All right, let's start off with the headline coming from FG drags 36 governors to Supreme Court, seeks full autonomy for local government areas.
Okay, thank you, Zibby. So, the Attorney General of the Federation, on behalf of the federal government, has filed a suit against the 36 state governors at the Supreme Court. And amongst other things, he's seeking full autonomy for the local government areas. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you through a summary of the case he's provided at the Supreme Court. Then I'm going to explain what my views or thoughts on the matter are. So, he's praying, he has several prayers. He's seeking an order of court prohibiting the state governors from embarking on unilateral, arbitrary, and unlawful dissolutions of democratically elected local government leaders. He's also asking for an order permitting the funds standing in the credits of the local governments to be directly channeled to them from the federation account in line with the provisions of the Constitution as against the alleged unlawful joint accounts. He's also seeking an order stopping governors from further constituting caretaker committees to run the affairs of local governments as against the system recognized in the Constitution. And then he's specifically applying for an order of injunction restraining the governors, their agents, and privies from receiving, spending, or tampering with funds released from the Federation account for the benefits of local governments. And it goes on, and you're invited to read the story. Now, I have a challenge with what is being sought to be achieved here. We must remember that sometime last year, towards the tail end of the Buhari administration, there was a constitutional review process ongoing, and proposals were sent to the 36 state houses of assembly. Now, one of those proposals was full autonomy for the local government areas. It did not fly because it did not get the consent of two-thirds of the state houses of assembly in Nigeria. What does that mean for the listener? It means less than 24 state houses of assembly voted in favor of granting local governments full autonomy. Now, if you couldn't do that through the constitutional process, how do you think you're going to get it from a court case? It's not going to happen. Now, I'm going to read section 162 of the Constitution, specifically the sections that deal with monies going to the local government. And it's section 162, subsection 5. Each state shall maintain a special account to be called the State Joint Local Government Account, into which shall be paid all allocations to the local government councils of the state from the federation account and from the government of the state. Subsection 7 says each state shall pay to local government councils in its area of jurisdiction such proportion of its total revenue on such terms and in such manner as may be prescribed by the National Assembly. Now, there's a seeming lacuna here. It doesn't say it will pay to the local government council executive. It just said the money will be paid to the local government council. Now, the lacuna is this: executives come and go, the local government council remains. So your term of office finishes, you go, another person comes, starts his own term of office, and he goes. Now the money is being paid into an account. Now the Constitution is seemingly silent on whether it has to be paid to a particular executive, whether it has to be an executive through an election or an executive which is caretaker, which was brought about by an appointment. Now, when you are seeking to restrain the governors from doing this, we must remember Nigeria seemingly runs a federal system of government. So the state governments, to some extent, are independent of the executive. Now, when they say that the governors should not be allowed to interfere with the account, let's take our minds back to the first term of General Obasanjo. The current president was the governor of Lagos State. He started the creation of new local government councils in Lagos State. That process was never completed. Today, monies that were meant for the original local governments are split. Some are given to what is left of the original local government council, then the rest given to what we now describe as LCDAs. Now, flowing from what I just said, is it proper to give money from the federation, either from the national level or the subnational level, to an entity that does not exist in law? Because as far as the Constitution is concerned, there are no LCDAs. The Constitution lists out 776 local government areas. No LCDAs listed, but they've been collecting money for at least 20 years. So where does it start? Where does it stop? What is required is a political solution. You have to go and amend the Constitution to take cognizance and sort out the lacunas that have been created. But to simply believe that by a court order, you will get things you should have gotten through a constitutional amendment, it beats my imagination. But again, I'm speaking to an ideal situation. If it's the Supreme Court we saw in action last year, I'm not holding my breath.
All right, let's go over. Maybe, would you want to add a little to what he said? Because it seemed we're talking about the Supreme Court here. The Supreme Court is what we're looking at here. And we understand that the judgment of the Supreme Court is not something you take with levity, if that's any consolation to go by.
Me?
Yes.
Listen, I'm intrigued at this, especially for the reasons that they tried it at the end of the last administration and the states House of Assemblies refused to accept it. So they're now going straight to the Supreme Court. At the end of the day, I'm intrigued that this is the first focus, but you got to start somewhere. Indeed, the local government I should not worry, quote unquote, about whatever the president does. To a lesser extent, I should be concerned about what the government does. But wherever I stay, the people in charge of my markets, my streets, my drainage, and other signage and all that should be my local government secretariat. That is where the attention really should be. And in that respect, there should be friendly competition between local governments to see who's best. They're going after this. I'd love to also hear the federal government status on VAT. The fact that a contract can be awarded, perhaps in Rivers State, VAT of 4.7 billion comes out of
AV's network seem to be the issue right now, but let's see if it gets back shortly. But Mr. C, that's where we leave that conversation now. But if you would help us understand why it seems even the local governments themselves are not, it would appear that their body language, it seems they are not even ready for full autonomy because of the responsibilities ahead.
Okay, so you're partly correct. It would seem that some of them are not ready for the responsibilities that lie with actually governing Nigerians at the third level of governance. But again, you have to remember this. What is the caliber of people that put themselves up for election at the local government levels? You basically do not know them. They're basically like ghosts who just appear out of nowhere. And then you can't really testify or ascertain what they are or what they're about. So in most local governments, nothing actually happens. You just show up once a month, share money, and they disappear into the wind. So until Nigeria, so it's a collective problem, and until Nigerians start paying proper attention to the people who are elected to govern them at all levels, sadly, we will continue to discuss stories like this.
Maybe let's go over now to the Nation newspaper where Governor Sanwo-Olu to unveil Lagos transport policy. Network this morning is not this smiling on AB.
All right, WhatsApp number to let us know your thoughts, 0809-444-0981. You can also tweet at Smooth981. AB, are you back with us? Okay. All right. We're going to work hard to make sure that AB comes back. But Mr. C, we're going to come to you again. And this next headline comes from Punch. FG Assessment Portal. Nigerians rate power, defense, agri, education minister poorly.
Okay, thank you, Zibby. So, just as it was promised by Ms. Hadiza Usman or Hadiza Muhammad, a citizens delivery tracker app was made available to the public, and Nigerians were invited to log into the portal and then rate the ministers. Now, the assessment is back, even though the numbers that logged in are quite shockingly low. About 101 Nigerians logged in, and we understand that from the assessment that Nigerians rated the power minister, the defense ministers, the agriculture minister, the education minister poorly. Now, let's look at that. Power has been an absolute joke. So the assessment is in line. He's clearly disappointed the majority of Nigerians with his stay in office for the last 1 year. Statements credited to him are truly unbelievable. They're truly shocking. Defense, no, there's no point stating the obvious. We had another mass abduction case with non-state criminal actors have been popping up all over the place, acting with impunity, and it seems as if there's been no respite, despite the fact that in isolated incidents, members of the security forces will rescue Nigerians that have been forced into captivity. But generally, security in the last 1 year hasn't been great. Agriculture, I'm not even sure I know who the Minister for Agriculture is. And that speaks volumes in the year that we've had. Education, obviously, we haven't done too well. Now, again, if Nigerians were to truly rate all the 47 ministers, I repeat on air, I don't know 10 that will pass. I can't name 10. And I'll be intrigued. I want the supporters of this administration to send text messages in, send WhatsApp messages in, name 10 ministers that have done very well in the first year. Because we must remember, you cannot suggest that the ministers have been doing well and then the general collective performance is underwhelming. It doesn't add up. So if the ministers have been doing well, it will translate into a collective general performance. That has not been the case. So the bigger question is, okay, after the assessment, what then happens? So the opposition parties have chimed in and have said that the buck stops on the president's table and he has to decide what he wants to do. But what Nigerians are yearning for is, look, we don't want stories, we don't want excuses. All we want, improved performance, improved conditions of living. That's what they want to see. So at the end of the day, Mr. President, it's your call.
All right, AB.
Yes, it's no surprise that the first minister on the list is the Minister of Power. And without using Google, it's actually a good challenge for social media. Name 10 ministers in Nigeria out of 47. We know the 48th one is the president himself. So name 9 other ministers only without using Google. It's almost impossible. In each of our spheres, we may know a minister related to us, but as an entire whole, they are the most underwhelming set of people thus far who have performed in Nigeria. And it's not a good thing to have actually hired 47 additional people in a 200 plus million country, where in a country of 300 plus million, they only have 15 ministers. Something is wrong. It looks like political rewarding, and it's not really giving us results. So, I mean, Nigerians are simply saying their part, but kudos to them for even putting up a platform for people to respond. They didn't have to do that because in the same way as they don't seem to be able to do anything useful for Nigeria, they didn't have to put up that website. You can just go on along their merry business.
Okay, sorry, I have one quick question. The suspended Minister for Humanitarian Affairs, was she assessed either by the team or on the portal? Because all we are told and we have been told is that she was suspended. There's been no further update. So if she wasn't assessed, why? If she was assessed, can we know what she scored?
The you assess, you are from the legal point, someone in suspension can be that person be assessed.
No, but she wasn't suspended for all 12 months. She was suspended for a period of time. So the period where she was not suspended, was she assessed?
But she hasn't been recalled.
No. But the assessment is for a year.
Yeah,
I understand.
The suspension would serve as the result of the assessment, perhaps. You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. You stay with us. The conversation continues.
So sorry, I don't know why my system was just, Zoom was just cutting off and returning, cutting off and returning. Sorry. It's something is really weird about the network. Part of the assessment.
It's not so human right to send you.
The network has you to contend with, you know, you don't take no for an answer. They throw you out, you come back in again. They're like, this guy, you're back, we are going.
So I'll be fast with my stories, no problem.
Thanks, what?
Yeah, this is Johnny Drill, and you're listening to the Smooth Breakfast Show.
It is still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. Still got the analyst here, and we've got you there, AB Bozimo, and we've also got Mr. C. Let's go on now. AB, let's go on to the Nation newspaper as we started earlier on. Governor Sanwo-Olu to unveil Lagos transport policy. Take us through this stuff.
Very important that a city as dynamic, as economically significant, and generally potentially magnificent as Lagos should have a coherent, cohesive transportation policy. This has just been released, is going to be released tomorrow, and it's supposed to pull together the different forms of transportation, multimodal transportation as it's called. We are all familiar with it: cars, cabs, buses, motorways, and all that. Now we have the addition of some train lines, one of them electric, and then an attempt to actually use the waterways as yet another form of transportation so that you can move from point to point, hopefully with the least difficulty and the most efficiency. I'm encouraged especially by the electric train. You know why? As much as I am the first to say no wonder the Minister of Power is at the number one list of who people in Nigeria are disappointed by. If you now decide that you must electrify a train, there is potential for you after achieving or side by side with achieving that goal. You can also make sure you're electrifying other places first along the line, and whatever lessons you're learning from that process, you can extend them into the larger society. So it's ambitious in a country as energy poor as Nigeria that they are making an electric train run. I've always posited that Lagos should be, I won't call it the Venice of Africa. Lagos should be the Lagos of Africa. And I'm happy to hear that water transportation with ferries and other smaller boats is being done. The key thing is that safety must be prioritized. Everybody in River State, to enter any boat, you must have a life jacket. Otherwise, the operator of the boat will be charged. And since they don't want to be charged, they do not let you on. I think that's the kind of model to be adopted in Lagos. It's not enough to rely on the person. Some people say, I swim like a fish. We don't care. If you're on this boat, you must be properly adorned. And it's a good example for everybody. So I just say they're about to launch 15 new boats at the Bodere Ferry Terminal in Ajah on Wednesday. That is positive for getting people from that extreme of maybe Lagos over to Marina and other places. So let's make sure that we properly put signs, create workable schedules, and because the hallmarks of a good transportation system is predictability. You should be able to say, if I go to this place at this time, I can expect a mode of transport, and when it takes me, it'll reach my destination by so and so. Once you have that form of predictability, you are now entering the realms of developed cities that people can move around effectively and efficiently. And there should be a way we get one ticket either for a week or a month that can take you from one mode to the other. So kudos to Lagos. We look forward to seeing this rolled out.
Well, if you can stay with you also, because it's also transportation in the next story. So we'd just like you to just go over and string it together, where the Punch newspaper talks about the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau investigation goes into the Kaduna Abuja train derailment somewhere around Jere. They were Abuja bound from Kaduna.
This story broke yesterday late, and I was traumatized. I've ridden on the trains before, not that route, but between Itakpe down to Warri. And I can tell you the trains are extremely comfortable. What I've ridden on, air conditioned, pleasant, and everything. So when you hear about a derailment, there's a part of the story that really worries me. They say that it seems as if there have been not a few derailments. And there seems to be a connection, even if not a cause, between the CCECC handing the trains over to the Nigeria Railway Corporation and an increase of these derailments. The suggestion there is that the NRC is not doing proper maintenance and inspection of the train routes. That's a major indictment. Again, it is not stated explicitly. So I am not saying that that is the cause, but there is a connection that has been noticed that whenever they hand over a rail, and in fact, they are very sadly saying that the likelihood is that when they hand over the Lagos to Ibadan train to the NRC, the fear is that derailment will begin to happen. Now, I think the NRC should take this very, very seriously because it is a slight and a blight on them and their reputation. And besides, it's a safety issue. No matter who may be to blame, every step should be taken to ensure that all pre deployment inspections and checks are done and done on a very regular basis to ensure that this doesn't happen. What you don't want is for people to begin to be afraid to take these means of transport because I repeat, they are remarkably efficient, comfortable, and effective if they are going along those routes. We don't need to have bad press like this about it. So NRC should step up. Let's also not forget that there could be criminal elements who are engaging in sabotage. So, I mean, there are many things, but sabotage should be, I think it should be detected in advance of a whole train coming upon a spot and then possibly derailing. Thank God there were no casualties, but you can imagine the inconvenience and be honest, the fear of being stranded in somewhere where nobody knows, in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes there's not even phone service in some of these areas. So please, NRC, the Nigerian government, all parties involved, make sure that our trains are seen and are actually reliable so that we don't have further bad stories like this.
Okay, so quick one. So it speaks volumes of the lack of tech adoption by our government agencies. Is the NRC capable of monitoring its tracks remotely? If the answer is yes, what happened? If the answer is no, when do you intend to start? Because all over the country, all over the world, serious countries remotely monitor their assets, and we cannot be the only ones left out.
All right, let's look at some messages coming through. Adewale says, who will rate the president now? Dan Okuda says, the truth must be told. The president's 1 year in office has not been impressive. Let no one deceive us with commissioning roads that have been in existence for years. Francis from Ojo says, as for me and my household, we have light more than 16 hours daily. We last used our generator in October last year. Tayo says, I wonder what the assessment of the interior minister is. Will the transportation policy include gentlemen collecting tax by the roadsides? We need boats in good working conditions and not the makeshift ones that are used in Lagos. Lara says, as we assessing ministers or ministries. If ministries, then humanitarians should be assessed. I believe it's ministers that are being assessed.
Again, like I explained, she was in office for, she's been in office for a year because she has not been removed. She was suspended for a period of a fraction of the 12 months. For the fraction that she was not suspended, she must be assessed.
All right, let's go on to the next
Before the
headline.
suspension.
Yes.
Okay.
From Vanguard, Emirship, protest rocks Kano over Sanusi's reinstatement.
Okay, thank you, Zibby. So since news broke last week that the post emir had been reinstated and that the 5 emirate councils had been folded back into one emirate council, there have been protests in Kano. Now, yes, in every action like this, there will be people who love it, who are in support. There will be people who are against it. But what they must remember is this. under this traditional Egyptian law of Kano State, the governor has the right to depose, has the authority to depose any traditional ruler, including the emir. And we must remember the immediate past governor of Kano State, Mr. Ganduje, removed Emir Sanusi. Right? There were protests then too, but they died down and everybody moved on with life. Now, Mr. Bayero, the immediate past emir, has been deposed. Now his supporters are insisting he be returned to office. I'm sorry to disappoint them. It's not happening. They've appealed to President Tinubu, and I'm wondering what that appeal is about. Are they asking President Tinubu to then use the military and put him back in office? No, because throughout time, even a sultan has been deposed in Nigeria. He's not the first traditional ruler to be deposed. Yes, it raises questions as to why governors or people in executive control of a state can seemingly remove a governor,
An emir,
an emir,
traditional
no,
ruler,
an emir or a traditional ruler
right?
for seemingly no reasons. What then that means is rather than come onto the streets, make noise, and expend energy in unfruitful ventures, they should speak to their elected representatives in the House of Assembly and seek to amend that law to restrict the ability of a governor to remove any sitting traditional ruler. And this should be across the country. But again, they will lose focus. They will lose teeth. Give it a week maximum. Everybody has moved. And this is the truth of the matter. No amount of protest is bringing back Mr. Bayero. The governor has made his point, and it's final. Maybe when he leaves office, whoever comes in can revisit the matter and bring him back into the emirship. But until then, this is the status quo, and this is how it's going to be.
Now, judging from what we see from Kano, we understand now. They say it is two captains or two kings cannot reign in the same domain. When Emir Sanusi was deposed, he had to move out of Kano. But now we've got a situation where there are two emirs in Kano right now. So
there's one emir and one immediate ex-emir.
Yeah, okay. You have one emir, you have an ex-emir. And the truth of the matter is this: no individual in any country can fight the government. It will get to a point, they will just arraign him on criminal charges, disturbing peace and order. And then he'll be fully and truly preoccupied with trying to preserve his liberty. Now, appeals are being made to him to let peace reign. If he refuses to read the handwriting on the wall, that's the next course of action. Yes, he can stay in Kano. I don't have a problem with him staying in Kano. But stay in Kano and behave yourself.
All right, let's look at the messages we have coming through. Adegboyega says local government chairmen, past and present, should be the ones speaking out and demanding for their autonomy, but they won't because they know the consequences. How will the ministers perform when in return they are most likely servicing party chieftains, political godfathers, clerics, kings, governors, senators, etc.? The place and importance of an emir has lost its honor and recognition. Whatever Nigerian politicians touch becomes leprosy. It's quite unfortunate. JP says, I think the assessment should not be the
within what they have done, but these are Bala, sharing the KPIs agreed versus achievement.
All right. Fabian says, the ministers that Nigerians will probably remember will be the suspended minister and those who were formerly in past governments as governors, etc. Unfortunately, they will continue until the day when the common Nigerian has the power to hold them accountable. Tayo says supporters of Emir Bayero should calm down, don't risk their lives over personal interest. The law was followed, but all this going to court should be investigated by NJC and LPDC. All right, well, that is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your messages. And of course, special thanks to our analysts for joining us, AB Bozimo and Z.
Thank you. Pleasure and privilege of mine. Hit me up at AB Bozimo on all platforms to agree or disagree.
Thank you for having me.